Help me grow fast or slow, as long as I know you're digging for gold. Help me learn soft or stern, as long as I know you're digging for gold. Life's a movie, the ultimate trip. You should have been told you'd be digging for gold.
Thank you.
Hello, my friends, and welcome to another episode of Digging for Gold. As you know, I'm Dan Goldberg. This is episode 44, and we have a very, very special guest, man of my own heart. Here he is, but I'm going to tell you, don't forget to subscribe. Go to YouTube at dan.goldberg. Go to Instagram, dan.goldberg. Spotify at digging.for.gold, TM, and TikTok at digging.gold.dg, and you'll get us on TikTok as well. So anyway, enough said about the podcast and where to subscribe and follow. This guy with the hand up, I see it there, okay, is phenomenal because he's, like I said, a man of my own heart. I'm a baseball freak. And today is the 20th, so happy spring to everybody up in the Northern Hemisphere. And spring to me meant one thing. That's it. And you know what that is. This is Jan Sumner, who for 6 years was the batting practice pitcher for the Colorado Rockies. He has tremendous stories. He was, at one time, probably could have made it to the majors, except for a terrible car accident that he was in. So welcome, Jan.
Dan, thank you so much. Those lies were fabulous. No, it was, that was very kind of you. Very kind.
It's my pleasure. And by the way, folks, Jan has written 5 books about baseball, which we'll get into in a little bit. But
yeah. I wrote them all in single syllable, by the way.
All in single syllable, so we can all read it without a problem. And they're both all 5 of them are only 7 pages long, so it's easy.
Right? It is. When I did book signings, people would. What you don't want to hear as an author at a book signing is somebody comes up, they pick up your book, they look at it, and then they look at you and go, "You wrote this?" Now, I don't know. Do I look illiterate or? So I would say to them, to test them back, I would say, yes, I did write it, and it was all written in single syllables. And there would be, really? Is that, yeah, he throw hard, he run. What? Some of them would go, oh, no, that's, but yeah.
Yeah.
Single syllable. Yeah. Anyway.
That's great. I know you have a great story, and interesting. You worked with some amazing ball players and so forth. But the first thing I'm going to hit on is that hat of yours. That hat,
Kansas City Monarchs.
Yeah, tell us a story about that.
Well, as you well know, I wrote the biography of an old Negro League player, Byron Johnson, who was an all-star shortstop for the Monarchs. And he retired in 41. He could have kept playing, but he knew they weren't going to get to play in the bigs. And he had a college degree from Marshall University. And he went back to Little Rock, where he was raised during Jim Crow. His grandmother was a slave. But he got a degree, went back there to teach. So after 1941, he bagged it. And I think, I could be wrong on this, but it was 2 years maybe after, who replaced him at shortstop for the Monarchs? Jackie Robinson.
Wow.
So anyway, I got to, as I've told you, I got to go to Kansas City, where they have the Negro League Museum, which is their Hall of Fame. Have you ever been there?
I have not. Well, I should say I have not yet been there.
Yes, if you get the chance, because their setup is so cool. They have this big room that is like a stadium. I mean, you feel like you're in a ballpark. And they have taken the greatest player at every position Josh Gibson's behind the plate as a catcher. They've got a statue of each person.
Wow.
Satchel's on the mound. I think Buck was at first base. Anyway, they've got a player who they think is the greatest. And I got to sit and interview Buck O'Neill just one-on-one, just the two of us for an hour and 45 minutes.
You know, when he used to be on TV, and I know that he was a coach too.
He was.
The way he spoke, you could listen to him for hours.
And he had charisma. I don't know what it was, but he told me I thought of this for managers today or coaches today. He said, you know, before a game would start, when he was managing, he said, I would go to each guy, first baseman, second baseman, and he said, I would say to them, you know what I want from you today? You just have a better day than the guy across from you. Their first baseman, their second baseman. He said, if they all did that, we're going to win.
It's true.
I mean, it's
genius.
Just profound. And he would say other really profound things about baseball. And he'd say them and then he'd fold his hands and he'd go, uh-huh, uh-huh, uh-huh. Like, I'm right. Yes, I do.
Yeah, I could see him doing that. I know that. He was in Ken Burns's baseball.
Shadow Ball, that chapter, he was the narrator through the whole thing. And I gave a copy of that book to Ken Burns, Legacy of a Monarch.
Really?
Yeah. And so then we're getting ready to leave, and I think I told you it was like 11:45. I'd been there. We'd been talking since 10. And I just sat in awe of him. And he looked at his watch, and he was in his 80s. And he looked incredible. I've got a great picture of us. Unfortunately, we didn't have cell phone pictures back then. I don't know if you can see this.
Yes.
That's the two of us in that room.
Wow.
And he said, Jan, I've got to go. I have to have lunch with a guy from the Arthritis Foundation. And I said, I kind of looked at him and I said, okay, Buck, that's fine. Do you have arthritis? And he says, no, I don't know why I'm having this lunch. But he said, have you been out to Satchel Paige's gravestone? And I said, no, I've not. He said, you want to know how to get there? And I said, yeah. So he told me how to get there. So I went. It's a big cemetery there in Kansas City. And I went to the office because, I'm going to know where I'm going in the cemetery. And I said to this woman, I'm looking for Satchel Paige's gravestone. And she said, oh, okay. You go here, blah, blah. And I said, okay. And I'll know. And she said, he's the only one with his own island. He has a grass island. So wow. I drive out there and there's this big chunk of grass, and then it kind of comes up, and then there's a stone in the middle. And what was his wife's name? I drew a blank. She's on this side. He's on this side. And I took a picture of it. Somebody had set a shot glass with a baseball on top of it.
Wow.
His side.
Wow. Yeah. He was amazing. I mean, how old was he when he pitched for the Braves that last game? Do you remember? Like 60 or something? 58, 60? Yeah. I
became good friends with Ralph Terry. 62
from the Yankees.
MVP for the Yankees. Anyway, I wrote a book about where I was born, Independence, Kansas, and baseball. That was the first year that Mickey Mantle played ball was in Independence.
Wow.
For the Independence Yankees, and Ralph threw there, going through the Yankee system. So we went there together, and we'd do book signings. But he said that he was throwing for the Yankees. Who did Page end his career with? Cleveland? I don't know.
I think Atlanta, he played an inning, pitched an inning, but I could be wrong.
Well, this was when he was still, anyway, the game had rain delayed.
Okay.
And so they're sitting in the bullpen. Ralph said he's sitting down there, and and Paige is sitting there, and Yogi, and he said Paige is just talking and talking and talking. And Stingle comes down because they're going to start the game. And he comes down to tell them, hey, start to get warm. And he said, out a minute, Paige keeps talking. And they have the game, whatever. After the game in the clubhouse, he said, Stingle came up to him and said, did he ever shut up? Did Paige ever shut up? But Ralph said when he was, this is amazing. I loved him. We had more fun and great talks. And he was in a bad car wreck.
Ralph Terry?
Yeah, when he was a kid, like I was.
Oh.
After my car wreck, I didn't necessarily think my baseball career was over. He thought his was over.
Wow.
Mine was over. His wasn't over.
Wow.
And we commiserated about that. But he, anyway, he said when he first came up with the Yankees, Stingle was intimidating. And, he'd get in trouble like the fourth inning or something. How did come Stingle? And he said, no, Skip, I'm okay. I can, you're out. So he said, this happened like 2 or 3 times. And I was going to start a game, and Yogi came up to him before the game. He says, you want to stay in the game? And Ralph said, yeah. And he says, when he comes out, don't say anything. Okay. So that game, he said, it's 4th, 5th inning. I get in a little trouble. Out comes Stingle. And, how are you guys doing? He said, I don't say a word. Okay, stay at it. He left him in. So he said,
that's great.
He said, great. I knew. But this one was classic. He said, he was out of Oklahoma. He was born just Big Cabin, Oklahoma, which is not far from where I was born in Independence, Kansas, down in the corner there.
Right.
And he said, he was a big guy. He was 6'4", 6'5". And so he signed the same scout who signed him, had signed Mantle. And so he signs, off he goes to New York, and they said, have you ever been to Cooperstown Hall of Fame? Well, yeah, sure, from Oklahoma. He said, no. Well, you got to go because Yankees are playing an exhibition there at Doubleday Field, who, by the way, had nothing to do with baseball. Doubleday. Anyway, so he goes, and the Yankees are out warming up, and Stingle is walking around, and he said, I'm feeling pretty good about myself. I just signed with the Yankees, So Stingle greets him, and he says, see those 2 old guys? And go sit with those guys. You can watch the game. Okay. So he said, I walk over to the dugout, and I'm feeling my oats. I'm 18 years old. I signed with the Yankees. And he said, I walk up to the first guy, and he said, hi, I'm Ralph Terry, pitcher for the Yankees. Good to meet you. And the guy says, oh, hi, Ralph. I'm Cy Young, and this is Ty Cobb.
Wow.
He sat there in the dugout, and he said, I listened. I could only take it for about 2 or 3 innings, Ty Cobb talking about hitting. And then yeah, isn't that?
Wow.
Yeah. And
Cy Young and Ty Cobb.
Yeah. I said, can I touch you, Ralph? And he said then when he was with the Yankees, DiMaggio would come into the clubhouse, and one time he brought Marilyn Monroe with him. And he said she went down in front of our and gave all of us a big hug, and
wow.
He said, I went home and told my wife. She didn't think it was that cool.
Well, I'll tell you, I may have told you this in our past conversations. My first major league game that I attended was the Yankees and the Philadelphia Athletics. And for those young folks who don't know that the Athletics were originally in Philadelphia, then
Yeah.
they moved to Kansas City, and then they moved to Oakland, and now they're going to move to Las Vegas. Um, that that was really something walking out on that field. I had never seen a grass that green in my life, and
Yes.
it was Mickey Mantle's rookie year.
Oh, yeah.
And I remember Ferris Fain was at first base. The the Philadelphia Athletics had like white or creamy white uniforms with blue letters, and Bobby Shantz and all those other guys, and then they left us.
Yeah.
And one of the stories I read actually in a Philadelphia paper, is the reason they left. If they would have stayed, there was no way in this day and age that they would have been able to go, because there
Right.
would have been a big outcry. But the guy who owned the Yankees also owned the stadium in Kansas City.
Oh,
So
really?
yeah, so he lobbied to get them
Was
to.
that who was that before Steinbrenner?
Oh yeah, way before Steinbrenner. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, because they left in '53 or '54,
Okay.
and that's when the Orioles got the St. Louis, right,
Oh, right.
and
Yeah.
and Boston went to Milwaukee. The not the Red Sox, but the Braves, the Boston
Right.
Braves. So there was all this movement, and then shortly thereafter, the Dodgers and the Giants moved out west.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But to me, there's still in my head somewhere 8 teams in 2 leagues, and all the other ones are just new teams.
Pretty
Yeah,
much. That's pretty much true.
yeah.
Pretty
So
much true.
that's
Well, when you talk about Mantle, I said his first year was in Independence, where I was born,
right.
and the house we lived in, about 2 blocks north of that, Mantle and this guy I got to be great friends with was a pitcher for them, the Independence Yankees. Lived in this, rented a room in this house, which sadly is burned down now. But anyway, I got to know, his name was Bob Mallon,
Mm.
and grew up on a farm outside St. Louis, got signed by the Yankees, came to Independence because that was like their rookie ball. And he shows up at this meeting, and the players are sitting around, the manager, and where's he going to live? And so the manager says, "Hey, we've got a new guy, Bob Mallon. Anybody got?" And Mantle says, "Well, yeah, you can stay with me." So
Wow.
he stays. They have a bedroom upstairs in this house where the family lives downstairs. So I go to interview him for the book, and we became real good. He passed away a couple of years ago, but he was Bob was very close to the vest. He didn't like attention. Dan, you should have seen all the Mantle memorabilia he had.
Wow. Wow.
Letters, personal letters. His family's got them now, which is good. Anyway,
Right.
so I'm interviewing him for the book, and I said, "So you guys had this bedroom upstairs?" "Yeah." I said, "They didn't have king, queen beds back?" "No." I said, "What, a couple singles?" And he goes, "No, just one double." And he said, and Bob was a pretty good sized guy. And he said, we'd sleep on the bed and the slats would break and we'd roll into the middle together. So flash ahead, after his career, he's being honored in St. Louis in the Minor League Baseball Hall of Fame. And Bob was, "I don't want to talk. I don't." So the announcer says, "Bob, would you like to come up and say something?" And so he turns to his wife and he says, "I can't go. What am I going to say?" She said, "Just go up and tell him you slept with Mickey Mantle," which he did not do, by the way. But
That's
yeah,
great. That's great. Yeah.
and I don't know if Mantle they had him at shortstop
I didn't know that. Yeah.
in Independence, and
Right.
he's not playing well. He's not hitting, and he decided to bag it, go back to Commerce. And his dad came up to Independence. And it's a kind of a famous conversation, I guess, in Yankee history, where Mantle tells his dad on the porch of this house, no, I'm done. I'm not doing this. And his dad said, okay, well, come back to Oklahoma and you can go to work in the oil fields. And that Mickey wisely went, wait, what? So he stayed, and then so I asked Bob about that, and he said, yeah, I was there. I was sitting on the porch. He was part of that
Wow.
conversation. Yeah, it's something. And he told me, and they tore down the ballpark in Independence, sadly. But I had pictures of when it was still up. And the first home run he hit, Mantle hit, center field was probably 450, 400. It was kind of a rectangular shape. He hit it over the fence into the zoo, into Monkey Island.
Wow.
It had to have gone 550 plus.
Wow. 550. Wow.
And whatever happened, they figure a kid found the ball. Who knows whatever happened to it? But the name of the book is Independence, Mantle, and Miss Able. Miss Able was a monkey from Monkey Island who's now in the Smithsonian, who was the first monkey we shot into space who came back alive.
Wow.
Well, I would do book signings or talks, and I'd go, the books, Mantle or Independence, Mantle, and Miss Able, and I'd get some real Sharpies. Wait a minute. Are you telling me Mantle had an affair with Miss Able? No. Miss Able was a monkey. He had an affair with a monkey? No.
That's great. That's really, really great. And those days when there were these 8 teams in each league and there was no interleague play, and I know we're used to interleague play now. We're used to a pitch clock, and we're used to the designated hitter, which, by the way, a lot of people don't realize was originally a National League idea. The designated hitter at the end of last century, I mean, the 1800s or early 1900s, and it never went into action. So it's very interesting, but I'm just really a traditionalist. I like games that go into extra innings without a ghost runner at second base. You got to win the game. You got to win it. Right. But I still love baseball, and it's okay with the way it is now. I don't want to see realignment. They're talking about realignment.
I know.
I want to see National League and American League.
Yeah,
that's it.
I actually wrote a book he was one of the first designated hitters for Oakland Athletics, Mike Epstein.
Oh, I remember that. Yeah.
I wrote
You wrote a book for him?
Yeah, I wrote when I was throwing for the Rockies, I got to be good friends with one of the radio guys, and he he called me one night and he said, Jan, do you know who Joe Cullinane is? And I said, no. He said, yes, you do. He's the old guy who comes into the dugout and tries to do interviews with, oh, yeah, I know Joe. So I cornered Joe and said, I guess you want to talk about a phenomenal life. He's passed a while back, but he interviewed Jesse Owens, all the famous Ali, all the famous athletes ever. And he was a radio broadcaster for the Rochester Red Wings, which was, I believe, the AAA of Baltimore. And so he had compiled this book. He brought it to me in 27 large cartons.
Wow.
Well, it was a lot, and we had to pare it all down. But anyway, I wrote the book for him, and I don't know how he knew Mike Epstein, but Epstein got a hold of me and said, hey, I want to write a book on hitting, because he'd become a hitting coach, and write out of the Ted Williams book of hitting.
Right.
And I said, okay. So he gave me all this stuff, and he wanted to call it, please, How the Hitter Outsmarts the Pitcher.
Okay.
And I said, I won't write that. I said, you're telling me there's a hitter in baseball that can outsmart Maddox? What are you?
Right.
So anyway, I did do it, but it was, under a different title, and it's just about hitting, linear hitting versus.
Well, are you acknowledged in that? Does it say Mike Epstein and you, Jan Sumner?
No.
You ghost wrote it.
I did. And I was publishing my own books then, and it was published under my.
Oh, okay.
And it's cool. Sadly, at the time I was trying to finish it, my mom was dying of brain cancer. So it was awkward at best. But anyway, Joe was, he had this great baritone voice because he was on the radio all the time.
Right.
So he writes, we get the book, and I and Jeff Kingery, who was the radio guy, we published the book for him. He didn't have any money. Right. So we put the book out. And I was over there taking him books one day, and he hands me a letter. And so I read it, and it was a very complimentary letter from this guy who knew Joe and said, I'm so thrilled you've got a book out. And so I handed it back, and I just drew a blank on the guy's name. Anyway, he says, well, you know who he is. And I said, no, I don't, Joe. He said, he's the guy who produced and directed Bull Durham. And he's famous, I think he did some other baseball movies. Anyway, he knew Joe because he'd been injured. He was a AAA ball player, but he'd been injured, and he went up and sat in the booth with Joe and did kind of color during the Red Wings games. Wow. But this is classic. I would have given anything for a video of this. So the book is out. They're going to, in Rochester, New York, they're going to honor Joe. So he and Audie, his wife, get on a train and go back to Rochester. And they're going to have, before a game, this celebration and announce and honor him. And Joe's already probably 80. And so they bring him out to the mound. Who thought of this? And the crowd, it's not a huge stadium, but it's full. And they announce it's Joe Cullinane, and after the game, he'll have a book signing and blah, 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 blah. And I don't know what they expected him to do, but they handed him a baseball. And then this catcher came way out. And Joe said, they handed me the ball. I dropped it. And he said, then I fell over like a tree off the side of the mountain. And he said, as I was going down, I could hear everyone go, oh. I said, there's no film of this? I've got to see this. But there wasn't, apparently. He was special. Joe was a special guy.
What finally happened? Did he get back up and throw the ball?
They got him up. No, they got him up and off the field. But and I knew the second time I took him books, he was kind of like Artie Johnson when he was dressed up as the old guy. That was kind of
right.
And so I took him the books up the little tiny house not far from me, and he walked me out to the car, and we're talking at the car, and I can hear the phone. And Audie answers. She comes to the door. She says, Joe, you have a call. It's some woman. He turns to me dead serious, and he goes, they all want me. And I said, yeah, Joe, when I think of a chick magnet, you come to mind. he was special.
That is great. So, so wait a minute now. You were a prospect. I mean, you were a good pitcher, right? I mean,
Yeah. Well, I could.
you're a story. You're a story. Well, what was your trip to get to now?
Okay. Well, I was on the way to the bigs. It didn't happen. No. Well, as we did when we were. That's baseball was everything, and
Absolutely.
that's what we played. And when we just the Sandlot. That was me. We played at Montclair Elementary School. It was a gravel field. And I went to elementary school there. And the backstop, behind the backstop on the third base side were houses back there.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if we fouled the ball into this guy's yard, we called him the baseball thief. We never saw him again. He would not give them back. And we didn't have a plethora of baseballs. I mean, I think that's where radio ball came from, because when we threw it, you could hear covers coming off. But then the baseball coach at East High School started a program for 12, 13, 14-year-olds in that age group. Where he came up with this name, I don't know. Old timers. We were pretty much the opposite of that. But I played shortstop. That's all I wanted to do was play shortstop. And I loved it. And so I was playing shortstop. And the umpires were East High School baseball players. This is in the summer, and they got a job umpiring the games. And the kid who put our team, we were self-coached. There were no coaches. So it was quite interesting. And the kid who had put our team together was our pitcher, and he really sucked. It was terrible. We were getting hammered every game. But whatever. We rode our bikes there, and then we'd ride our bikes home and stop at a malt shop. And so we were getting ready for a game. We probably had 4 or 5 games left. And this kid got us all together. We're standing around, and he says, "Does anybody else want to pitch?" Because, he was just getting clobbered every time. And I felt so bad for him. And I said, "I'll try it." Okay. And I could throw hard because from shortstop, it's kind of sidearm.
Right.
I threw 5 no-hitters.
Wow.
I just wasn't pitching. I just threw the ball by these kids.
Right.
But that old timers ended now my first year in high school, which was the first year for George Washington High School here in Denver. It was brand new high school. And some of the kids had to leave East and South High School because they changed the boundaries, come to GW. So the first day of baseball practice, I go out for shortstop. Well, one of the umpires from the old timers was now at GW, and he told the coach, "This kid can pitch." So I'm over with the shortstops, and Vaughn, the head coach, comes over and he goes, "I want you with the pitchers." What? I didn't want to pitch, but I had to go because he wanted me to do it. So that started my pitching career, and it was strictly based on heat. That was it. I could just flat bring it. And I knew nothing about pitching, no other pitches. I mean, there were no signals. Just put the glove down. And and then my junior year, famous pitching coach here, he signed Roy Halladay.
Wow.
He's in the Colorado. His name was Bus Campbell. And I was throwing a summer game against the top team and shut him out. And after the game, he said, "Would you like to work with me?" He worked with a lot of major league guys. And what? Well, he taught me how to pitch.
Wow.
And taught me a slider. And anyway, that kind of started the pitching thing. And I could throw really hard. So, I mean, probably my senior year, I was probably 88 to 90. And that's pretty good heat for high school.
Yeah, absolutely.
Then I went up to Greeley CSC, it's UNC now, and they were the number one college Division I team in this region when I went up there. And my sophomore year, sophomore or freshman could not play varsity. So we had an amazing, my traveling roommate, went on and wound up being a manager for the Padres, Greg Riddoff.
Oh, yeah.
And he played shortstop, but I was bringing it then. I was up into the 90s. And we had a great freshman team. And then my sophomore year, we won our conference. We beat Gonzaga. Then we beat Denver University to go face Arizona State University to go to the College World Series. And they had some guys, Bando, Mundy, Jackson. They were loaded. And,
wow. Yeah, Jackson was from here. I could 15 minutes from Reggie.
Yeah.
15 minutes from where I am in Philly.
Yeah. And they beat us, of course, 2 out of 3. And they went to the World Series and won it, beat Ohio State for the title. But that summer, I took an all-star shortstop from GW up to Greeley to meet the coach about coming there and playing. We were coming back on Highway 85, and which is a dangerous highway. And this grandmother and her daughter and 2 grandkids ran 2 stop signs onto the highway, and we broadsided her at 70. We didn't have seatbelts. Broadsided her at 75 miles an hour. And the 2 grandkids flew out of the car. We hit that car so hard it went backwards 400 feet down that road she was going to go on.
Wow.
And we didn't have breakaway glass. I went out the windshield and then came back in.
Oh, geez.
And it fractured my skull and cut my nose off.
Oh, my God.
And there was a public service guy up on the wires there at that intersection, and he watched the whole accident. And he clicked on for an ambulance, or I would have died there. I would have bled to death.
Jeez.
So anyway, they got the ambulances, and so
oh man,
baseball was in the rearview mirror a long way, and I got married. I was in 65 and 66. I got married, and I figured baseball's probably done. However, there was a famous announcer and ex-NCAA basketball ref named Irv Brown here, and he had started a baseball program at Metro State.
Mm-hmm.
I had 1 year of eligibility left, so I called him because I wanted to finish school. And I said, Irv, I got 1 year. We went way back, and he says, I can pay for your tuition. That's it. I said, I'll take it. So I pitched 1 year for him, and it was just called rec ball, but we played a lot of Division I schools and pretty much beat all of them.
Wow.
And but then I was done, and I was done. I took up racquetball, and I was out of baseball for 27 years. And no, and I'd started my own business, and my biggest client, he managed a slow pitch softball team, and I'm playing a ton of racquetball. And he said, you pitched in high school, college? Yeah. He said, would you pitch for our slow pitch? Slow pitch? So I said, okay. Oh, that was frustrating. Some guy that hasn't seen his feet in 6 years, and I'm going, I wanted to. So anyway, we won the city title.
Wow.
But we were up in Vail playing in a tournament, slow pitch tournament, and we're waiting, and the kid who was our center fielder had played at Iowa, baseball at Iowa. And he said, didn't you pitched, didn't you? And I, yeah. And he says, you want to play some catch? And I said, yeah. So he digs a baseball out, and Felt so. Now I'm 47 at this point.
Wow.
And he says, you should be pitching in our over 30 league. And I said, what? It was the men's senior baseball league, which,
Right, sure.
Nationwide and whatever. And I said, okay. And he says, I'm telling our manager. And I said, okay. So I get a call from Mike, the manager. He says, I hear you can still throw well. And I said, yeah, feels good. Explain. And Jim said you're like near 40. Now they're all over 30. And I said, no, I'm 47. Hello? There's this long pause. And he says, oh. And I said, hey, I'll come out. I'm not there to embarrass you or me. If it's no good, I'll see you. It's okay. Okay. So I go out and they have a night game and they put me in right field. I never did understand that. And we get to the seventh inning. We're getting to the seventh inning. And he says, you want to pitch, right? And I said, yeah, that's why I came out here. Okay. Well, the catcher we had, he'd caught in AAA. I mean, he was good catcher. So he says, what do you throw? And I said, nothing but fastballs. He said, no break and pit? And I said, no, you don't even have to give me signs. You just set up the target. Okay. I struck 9 guys out in 3 innings.
Wow.
Just throwing heat. So then I was off and running back into baseball.
Yeah.
And got a hold of me again. So here I am.
Wow. So how did that lead to you working with the Colorado Rockies?
Well, there were 2 main pitchers on that team, and every team was named after a major league team. And at that time, we were the Expos.
Right.
And so there was a lefty, great guy, Dave Seifert, and he was a lefty, and we'd alternate games. So his game was coming up. This was 93, so Rockies had started.
Right.
And it was his turn to throw, and that Saturday or Sunday, whatever, he goes, Jan, I can't, my arm's too tired. And I said, your arm's too tired? You haven't thrown in 2 weeks. And he said, no, I'm throwing batting practice for the Rockies. I said, shut up. What? He goes, yeah. I said, okay. Man, I'd love to do that. And he said, you know what? I'll ask Amos. Amos Otis was the hitting coach. And because he said the other guy, he and the other guy were both left-handed. And I said, yeah, I do. So Amos said, yeah, have him come out. So I show up at Mile High Stadium, and I knew who Amos was.
Sure.
And so I get dressed. The locker rooms were terrible. It was that old state was hideous. But I'm getting dressed out, and one of the relief pitchers is sitting there getting his cleats on, and he looks at me and he goes, "Oh, you the new meat?" Apparently so. So I go out, and they want me to throw to see if I can do it.
Right.
They had me throw to the pitchers, which are the worst group to throw to. And but I threw a few warm-up pitches. I mean, I was throwing off a mound. I was playing racquetball. My arm was good to go. And so I throw a few, and Amos walks up and he goes, are you nervous? And I wasn't, because I looked at these guys and thought, my daughters are older than you are.
Right.
But I thought I should say I was. So I said, yeah, I am. And he said, you sure don't look it. And I said, oh, well, good. That was the beginning of a 6-year journey. I threw for them in 93. You know who I loved was Joe Girardi.
Yeah, he managed for the Phillies for a bit.
He had a great dry wit. I'd thrown about 2 weeks, I think. And we were, and the way they do it, Baylor always let the pitchers hit. A lot of managers don't do that, but I thought that was cool. He'd let them hit, even the relievers who were never going to hit.
Right.
Then they have the extra men, guys not starting, and then they split the starters into two groups. And eventually I wound up just throwing to one of the starting groups. But we were walking off the field, and Joe comes up to me and he pats me on the shoulder. And he says, Jan, you know how hard it is to find good BP pitchers? Oh, I took that as a compliment. And I said, well, no, but thanks, Joe. And he goes, oh, I wasn't talking about you. That was, and my youngest daughter loved him. And so I took a new ball to him in the clubhouse. And he's rocked back in his chair in front of his locker. And I just really liked him a ton. And he says, I said, hey, Joe, because I had learned to kid with him a little. I said, for some strange reason, my youngest daughter thinks you're cool. Then he kind of laughs. And I said, would you sign a ball for her? And he goes, no. But he did. He signed it. But the coolest part was they were going to go to Chicago, play the Cubbies. And by then, now this is 95. We're at Coors. And so I'm sitting in the dugout waiting to throw, although I loved shagging. That was more fun than throwing. And he comes in and Joe comes in and sits down next to me. And because, I had to be there by 3:30 at the latest, because we'd start BP at 4.
Right.
And he sat down and he says, can I ask you something? And I said, yeah. He says, what do you do for a living that you can do this? So I explained what I did. And that's cool. And I said, are you excited about going to home? Because he's from Chicago and went to Northwestern. And he says, oh, yeah, I'm really excited. My family will be there. And I love Chicago. And so we had a nice chat. I went to Chicago. That's when I threw BP there. And they got me tickets. Rockies got me tickets. And the Rockies were on the first base dugout. And then the seats start, and I'm like the first 2 or 3, 4 seats. And who's sitting next to me is Joe Girardi's brother.
Wow.
And
that's
so
pretty cool.
Got to chat. And
that's pretty cool. Chicago.
Throwing at Wrigley I was awestruck. Just, I changed quick and went out and the players didn't know I was going to be there. So I got there and I didn't have pants. And my boss in 95 was Art Howe, who I loved. And this is priceless. At 93, back at Mile High Stadium, he was managing me at Houston. So the Astros are in town, and we're finishing up our BP, and all the Astros and Art come out, and they're by the third base, waiting to come onto the field. And I'm finishing up the last group of the starters. And so I throw the last pitch, and Art grabs a couple of buckets of, he runs out to the field, and he says, hey, would you throw to my guys?
Wow.
And I said, I don't think the Rockies would like that. And he laughed. He goes, he's my boss in 95.
Wow.
I mean, what are the odds on it? We laughed about that.
Wow. That is cool. That is very cool.
It was amazing. But anyway, he arranged for me to take that trip to Chicago and throw BP there. But so I go out early. He told me, he says, go out, walk around the field, check it all out before we come out. So I did. And and then it's time to start. And it was so cool. The pitchers didn't hit on the road, just the extras and the starters. And so Baylor, who I just loved, he said, Jan, you can throw to the first group. So you can get showered and get changed and get something to eat and get your seats and all that. they accommodated. But the first guy to step in to hit was a guy named John Vanderwall, who was a good shot. I'll tell you, Dan, throwing BP is weird because there's some guys you're just in sync with. I could have thrown to John Vanderwall with my eyes closed, and he would have hit 500 home runs off of me.
Wow.
Craig Counsell, he was up, and he was right on top of the plate. And I kept thinking, what? And they don't put initially, they don't put a target on the tarp at the back, which is good.
Right.
He was throwing, it's all release point.
Yeah.
But I kept thinking, I hated throwing to him.
Yeah, he had you were showing it, very strange stance.
And he's right on top of the plate, straight up and down. And the other one was a backup catcher. They had Jorge Brito, and he would crouch down, and his left knee was almost over the plate. And I kept thinking, I'm going to hit this guy in the leg. Those two I couldn't, but Anyway,
you bring up an interesting point. When a team goes on the road, who throws to them in batting practice? Normally,
coaches.
The coaches do it.
But see, the problem was in '93, the coaches were Don Zimmer, who was already 5 days older than water. He nicknamed me Mr. Rapid Fire because I threw more pitches in 20 minutes than anybody else. But they had several coaches, Larry Bernarth, they couldn't throw BP.
Yeah.
And
was that when they had, no. When was it that they had 5 coaches who ran the team and no manager? When was that? Do you remember that? Or maybe it was the Cubs. I think it was the Cubs.
Yeah. No, the Rockies always had a manager. For me, it was Baylor for 5 years. I didn't hear from him, and this is funny. In '90, I threw for him in '93. They let Amos go, which I had breakfast with him after the season, and he was such a good guy. He was just such a good guy. And he told me at breakfast, he said, if I'm back, you're back. And he said, if I don't come back, then I'll probably see if I can get on with Houston. Which he didn't, but they let him go. So '94, they're going to have a new hitting coach, and that wound up being Dwight Evans. I didn't hear from him. And so I thought I'm one and done, which is cool.
Yeah.
So apparently Evans and Baylor didn't get along, and Evans packed in after '94. Now they moved to Coors.
Oh, right.
And I've kissed him off. I'm thinking I'm done with him. And I get a call from a kid. Is this Jan? Yeah. Jan, I don't know if you remember me. This is Dusty. I was a locker room boy. And I vaguely remembered him. And I said, yeah. He said, well, Art Howe wanted me to call you and see if you wanted to throw BP for us again. Said, what? So I said, yeah. So I was back at it. Well, then Art, I remember walking off the field with him the last game of the season. And he said, Jan, if I'm back next year, you're back next year. And I said, okay, cool. But he took the Oakland job.
Right.
Moneyball.
Right.
By the way, Philip Seymour Hoffman played him in the Move Me. Hoffman and Art had about as much in common as I would with Michael Jordan. Nothing.
Yeah, I saw the movie and I agree with you. Yeah.
It was, but whatever. Anyway, so he left and I'm thinking, okay. So I he's gone and I'm not hearing. So I get a call, it's probably early March for '96. And this guy says, is this Jan? I said, yeah. He said, Jan, this is Ken Griffey.
Wow.
Now, I think it's my friends jacking around with me.
Yeah.
So I said, yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, he doesn't get it. And he goes, yeah, I was calling to see if you wanted to come back out and throw BP for us. I said, this is Ken Griffey? He goes, yeah. So bada bing, I'm back.
Wow.
96 with Ken, who was, we did a lot socially kind of together. His wife, Birdie, that's who Junior looks like, mom. And she's a tall woman. But Ken we just had some fun times, and I wanted to go to Dodger Stadium and throw. So I went to him. I said, Ken, I'd like to go throw at Dodger Stadium. Can you, because, Art had worked it out for Wrigley. He goes, oh, yeah, you can do it. I said, okay. About 2 days go by. We're at BP, and he walks up and he goes, how do we do that? And I realized he probably had never had to do that.
Right.
And I said, it's okay, I'll take care of it. So I did with the Rockies. Anyway, I got out there and Koufax off that mound. Oh, mama.
God. Yeah.
So I go out early, and Dodger blue is Dodger blue. The locker room was all blue. The carpet was blue. Everything was blue. So I go out, and I'm looking around. I'm walking around, and their hitting cages are out under the outfield. And this gate slides open. Out comes Ken, and it was with Ellis Burks. And he starts walking across the field, and he sees me, and he goes, Jan, what are you doing here? What do you mean, what am I doing? So, and then he and Baylor were close friends. And he wanted to stay, but Gebhardt, the GM, he would only give the coaches 1-year contracts.
Wow.
And Ken went to him and said, he said, no. So he left, went back to Cincinnati. But then Hurdle came in, and Clint Hurdle.
Right.
And, I had met him. He was the roving hitting coach for the Rockies, and he'd been in town, and I met him once out of BP, but I didn't know him. And then in 97, he gets the job. And so I show up for the first time, and I walk in, and Clint's he's a big guy. He's got a real presence. He's super smart, a prolific reader. I mean, he's a sharp cookie. We're good friends to this day. And we're just really meeting. And I said, Clint, I'm Jan. And he goes, I know, you know what? I'm never going to forget your first name. And I said, okay. And he said, my first wife was named Jan. And I said, is this going to be a problem? He goes, no, it's not going to be a problem. But he was great. He was great to me for 3 years. And we did some stuff. He was a party dude. He partied his way out of baseball. And and I can only bring this up because he's a huge Christian guy now.
Yeah.
I mean, he's really changed his life. But early on, he was a party guy. But his wife Carla was a Christian, and that's what flipped him. So,
right.
Anyway, but he was I was lucky. I had nothing but good guys running, and the hitting coach was my direct boss. Baylor was over him. Through my church at the time, a guy said, hey, Randy Gratishar wants to talk to you. I think probably the best linebacker the Broncos ever had, just got put in the Hall of Fame. So I said, okay. So he went to the church, and so he came up to me and he goes, could I bring my son out early for batting practice and his friend? And I said, oh yeah, sure, I'll arrange that. So I did. He's the only person I ever took through the clubhouse
Wow.
where the players wanted his autograph.
Jeez, that's pretty cool.
So we get out to the field, and it hasn't, it's before regular BP. And these two boys, his son and his best friend, I've set them right at the corner where the dugout is. And I said, boys, you have to stay right here. Can't move. Okay. Because every player that comes out, you can get their autograph. They'll walk right by you. Okay. So now I'm going to walk up. I got him tickets. We're walking up to the ticket office. He, great guy, super guy. And I said, I thought he'd say Super Bowl, but I said, what's your biggest thrill in football? What was it? He said, playing Michigan in the shoe. Nothing's.
Wow.
I said, better than the Super Bowl. Oh, yeah. Over 100,000 people. He said, it's amazing. I can't imagine. So we get the tickets. We come back down. The boys are not there. They've started BP. And I got to go get dressed to go out to throw. We can't find the boys. And we're looking in the dugout, and I'm asking, where are these kids? And Baylor's standing over kind of by the first base coaching box, and he sees that we're forlorn. He walks over, and Randy says, my boy, and he said, points. Baylor let him go stand on the back of the hitting cage. So they're getting right up close, and they're getting all this.
Wow.
It was.
Wow. That's, baseball has, it's in my soul, and anybody that knows me knows that. And I worked at the ballpark at Connie Mack Stadium as a vendor in 1963.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, in 63 and 64. And I remember Sandy Koufax against Chris Short. And I was standing behind the plate, and Koufax, I'm watching Koufax pitch, and his pitches are going like that. I mean, it's like, and I'm thinking to myself, how in the world could anybody hit this? It looks like it's coming right at you, and then it trails away. And it was like, I realized then. And of course, Chris Short was really good. Yeah. So that was one of those, I forget the score, but it was probably a 1-0 game or a 2-1 game or whatever it was. Right. And I was very fortunate to be able to be in that stadium.
Oh, absolutely.
I get there early. And one day I got there and I may have told you this in our conversations, I got there early. I guess it was 60, might have been 63 or 64. 64 was a memorable, in a bad way, year for the Phillies because they were 6.5 games up with, I think it was 10 games to go or 12 games to go, and they blew it. But I'm there early, and Ruben Amaro, the father, not Junior, looks at me and says, come here. So I go on the field. He's fun going him out. He's hitting to the outfielders and hitting to the infielders. He said, how would you like to sort of work out with us? How would you do me a favor? I was like, whoa, okay. And he said, you stand at first base. Here's a glove. And when I hit him out, they're going to throw him back to you. Yeah. So I went, this was like I forget how old I was, 16, 17 years old, whatever it was. Goodness. And I was just like freaked. Maybe I was 15, maybe I was underage. And I'll never forget that. They had a great team at that time. And years later, I'm taking my younger son to spring training. And we get out in the Tampa airport, we're Clearwater. Yeah. He was there, but Ruben Amaro. Oh, did he remember you? Remembered me. He said, hey, how are you? I haven't seen you in years. And I was like, what? What? How old were you when this happened? Oh, I was, my son was, let me see, he's 50 now. So maybe he was like 12 or 13 or something. So it's what, 37 years ago. So I was, I'm 78, so 37 years ago. Let's say it's 38 years ago. I'm 40? Okay.
And he remembered you from when you were
He
50?
remembered me, and he talked about that. And it was like, what? And and it was then that I got a little bit of a feeling about the way major leaguers think and their memories.
Yeah.
And I became friends with the Phillies later on because I owned a pretty big optical company, and we used to make them in their glasses.
Oh, okay.
So Mike Schmidt would come in, all the guys would come in, we'd make their glasses, mostly in our Voorhees, New Jersey store, and because it's right across the river where a lot of them live. And I had shaved off my beard in 1977 and 1988. Okay. And in 1988, I went down to spring training with my son. And a friend of mine was doing a commercial with Dick Vermeil and
Oh,
my
yeah.
friend Steve Gary. He used to be a reporter for KYW, I think it was, here in Philly. So I saw him. I knew Steve for years, and I said, Steve, where's Schmitty? Could you tell him I'm here? And he said, he's in the clubhouse. I'll tell him you're here. So we went out, he went to the clubhouse, he comes back out and he said, I told Schmitty you're here and he's going to come out and see you. And I said to him, you won't recognize Dan because he shaved off his beard and it must be 3 years. And so Steve said to me, and then Schmitty said, no, it's not. It's 11 years.
He remembered, holy cow.
He remembered it was 11 years. And I remember in that moment thinking, that's probably how, between him and Ruben Amaro, a baseball player remembers, I got a single off a slider off of this guy 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Right? This guy struck me out in a low inside fastball last week. Okay. It's like that's what struck me.
Yeah.
That's what struck me. The memory of a baseball player and a specific play and a specific at bat, a specific play in the field, and now it was like one of those moments where the sky opens up, and I thought, okay, I get it now. I get it, and
wow.
Yeah, Mike Schmidt, he did a lot of nice things for me. I mean, he brought a whole group of guys together, invited me into the stadium, into the clubhouse, and they did a whole bunch of ads. A friend of mine, let him rest in peace, my friend Neil, who was a photographer for Philadelphia Magazine and the Inquirer, he came and they took a whole bunch of pictures, about 5 or 6 guys around the batting cage, and they all signed releases and said, you can use this in any way you want for your company. They all wore 4 Eyes T-shirts. And
cool.
Today it would cost $1 million a guy, and they did it for free. And I still have the things.
But I think you're selling yourself short here. You obviously are a very memorable person.
Well, maybe it's the beard. I take it off. It's Velcro. I take it off at night. But
come on, Dick. You know what? No, I'm kidding.
So it is funny, and I'll always remember that from him, Dave Cash, Mike Anderson, Ron Schuler. They were all guys that did that. And I remember walking in with my A2000 and
the best ever.
Best. I still have it. And Dave Cash said, that is a great glove.
Yeah.
And I still have it. I need to have it restrung, but those are the types of memories. I'll never forget being on that field.
No, it's
it's
just unique.
Baseball.
It's just it's a unique thing. Part of the fun of, actually the most fun of BP was not throwing BP. It was shagging, or I would take infield stuff with guys. And they have a big screen they put up in front of first base for the first baseman. So while they're hit, because there's ground balls from first base side being hit to the left side, no, vice versa. Plus the ball's being hit. So I'm playing first base for throws from Vinny Castilla and Walt Weiss.
Oh yeah,
shortstop. And the screen it's tilted like this, and then there are 2 poles that come back. and then here's first base. So I'm behind the screen. So balls hit twice. And, he was a great fielder. He didn't have a super arm, but he had a quick release.
Right.
He had the ball gone. So I'm there, and he throws the ball over, and I had my A2000, and I always kept my index finger on the outside. So he throws one over, and I'm pretty sure it's going to hit the pole.
Oh, yes.
And I'm thinking if it glances, so I try to reach around the pole, and in doing so, I must have stuck this finger because the ball hits this finger.
Oh.
Bends it back.
Jeez.
I'm stopped. And Walt runs over. He was a nice guy. And, Jan, are you okay? And we're looking at my finger. It's back where it's supposed to be, but it's already starting to go.
Yeah.
And with our thorough medical knowledge, we determined, it's okay. So it starts puffing up big time, and I have to leave. And and at the time I was dating this gal, and it was a big dinner event we were going to go to. And I had told her, you cannot tell people I throw batting practice for the Rockies. Because, can you give me a ball? How about tickets? Could I get a bat? Right. No, that's...
Yep.
So okay, I won't. So we go to the dinner. My finger now looks like my leg. I mean, the thing is just huge. And they slide another table up, younger couple right here. And so I asked for the waiter. I said, could I get a glass of ice water?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I stick my finger in the ice water. And we start talking with them. And the guy, he's a weightlifter, and I don't know something. And he goes, what happened to your finger? I said, I hurt it playing ball. And he said, I said it was a softball thing. Oh, I don't care for softball. Baseball's way better. Freddie couldn't help it. He throws batting practice for the Rockies. They invited us over to their place.
That is great. That is great. Oh, well. It's great. Listen, I have to tell everybody now, okay. That if you enjoyed these conversations about baseball that Jan and I have had in the last hour and plus minutes, we will be doing a Dan and Jan Go Yard podcast with baseball people who love baseball, who played baseball of all levels and so forth. And we'll be bringing them on, or we'll just be talking about different things in baseball and our love for baseball. So I want to thank Jan for being here.
Thank you.
For Gold. It's been my pleasure, believe me. Digging for Gold, episode 44. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube, on Instagram, Spotify, TikTok, and just go to the bottom of dangoldberg.com and click on the icons. And just remember this. And once again, I want to thank Jan. This has been great. One of my favorite subjects in the world. I want to remind everybody, use your mind. If you don't, others will. We'll see you next time on Digging for Gold. Take care.